After a Game 3 loss and with Kyle Lowry out due to injury, it looked like momentum might be shifting away from Miami in Game 4. And while the Hawks looked good early on, it was Victor Oladipo who provided the unexpected spark to make Miami's defense unbreakable, igniting a backbreaking run that crushed the Hawks' spirit and led to a blowout Game 4 win. We'll break down Oladipo's impact, Jimmy Butler's big night, and how the Heat can close out the series on today's playoff edition of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Monday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat. However, you may be listening or watching on YouTube, on Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host Wes Goldberg. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Well, the game started on Sunday night. It could have gone in any number of ways for Miami. Kyle Lowry was ruled out due to a hamstring injury, and the Hawks coming off a big win in Game 3. Welcome back Clint Capella to the lineup, so things could have shifted in Atlanta's favor. Gabe Vincent started in place of Lowry, and he struggled to play the same role as Kyle did, and so did the rest of Miami's offense. They were shooting just 32% after the first quarter. The Hawks looked energized, raced out to an 8-point lead midway through the second quarter, and with Miami floundering, it looked like things might go south for the Heat. Instead, key players got in foul trouble. Erik Spoelstra went to his bench and plugged in Victor Oladipo, who's not played a single minute of the playoffs, and the move immediately paid off with the best defense this team has played all playoffs long. After giving up 35 points for the first 16 minutes of the game, the Heat held Atlanta to just 51 points throughout the rest of the game, including a lot of those coming in garbage time in the fourth. After Oladipo checked in, Miami closed out the half on a 28-6 run, for which the Hawks never really recovered. Trae Young was once again locked down, held to just 9 points, and along with Miami's suffocating defense, Jimmy Butler went off for 36 points, reminding everyone that he is, in fact, the best player in this series, and it's not even close. On a night when scoring was a struggle, the Heat still blew out the Hawks, 110-86, a commanding 3-1 lead in the series, and they're returning to Miami for Tuesday's Game 5 and a chance to advance. But before we look ahead, Wes, what a tremendous impact Victor Oladipo had on Sunday night.
Yeah, let's just start with this, right?
Oladipo!
Any chance?
Oladipo!
You got to give so much credit to Victor Oladipo because this is a guy who doesn't really know when he's going to play. Erik Spoelstra saying after the game, he's having conversations with Vic about, what, if we can get to you, we will get to you. And pushing back on reporters' questions about, hey, like, why did you extend from the 9-man rotation stuff? He's like, look, it's a 15-man rotation. Everybody can get called on. I'm always thinking about everybody in every moment and whether or not, and the right matchups and whether I needed to call on certain players on the bench. And tonight it was Victor Oladipo's night. You mentioned the run that the Heat went on. So much of that, it's not all on Victor Oladipo, obviously. There was a lot of good things happening. The Heat going small, PJ at the 5 was really working and has worked for this entire series. And I was a little baffled by why they didn't go to that more in Game 3. I think I said it on the show. I was like, I kind of feel like they lost the game because they didn't go to that for longer stretches. But
I think they were scared of Clint Capella, right? I think they were worried that he might dominate as far as the rebounding edge is concerned and things of that sort.
Oh, tonight,
an interior presence. Yeah, is that what you're talking about?
No, they went on for long stretches tonight. No, I was talking about Friday night. They didn't go.
Oh, okay,
Friday night.
Game 4, yeah.
No, tonight, like they went to it. They were fine. And I thought, playing PJ at the 5 and having Vic on the perimeter, those two things combined powered that huge 20-6 run or 26 to whatever it was, that huge run to end the first half. And but you got to give a lot of credit to Vic here because he's not in the rotation regularly. He obviously had an idea that he was probably going to play tonight. There was a lot of kind of looking at his warm-ups and how he was, and he was practicing with the second unit yesterday in Atlanta and all these things. So, obviously there was a sense there, but still it's hard to walk into a playoff series and do what it is that he did. And mostly what he did, he had some flashes offensively, but he locked down on defense. And having Oladipo there, I mean, what we saw tonight was sort of the best version, the theoretical thing that we all thought Victor Oladipo would bring to this team, which is we could put him into lineups and take a guy like Duncan Robinson or Tyler Herro out of that lineup. And so that little soft spot in the defense that the Hawks like to try to poke at doesn't exist anymore when you put Victor Oladipo in the Duncan Robinson or the Tyler Herro spot or the Max Drew spot or whatever it is. And once you have Oladipo out there, he's so switchable defensively. Like I saw him battle with, was it Capella or Kongu, one of the centers, for a rebound, and it was just like, yeah, this guy doesn't look like he tore his quad twice. You know what I mean? Like that takes so much lower body strength to do what he did. And he just physically was there tonight. Again, it's helpful that he doesn't play every single night, every single game, but he was there. He was exactly what Miami needed tonight. And it was like the ultimate version of what we expected this to maybe look like when we thought about it.
Yeah. I will say Capella did have an impact. Like I noticed early on, it wasn't a monstrous impact, but he was out there. That switch pocket that Cooper Moore had talked about regarding Trae Young and his ability to get that shot off, he certainly looked dialed in that first quarter because Capella is so much of a bigger body, creating so much more space. That second defender can't really close the gap in time. And so Trae Young was just letting it fly from 25, 30 feet out. He certainly looked like he was unimpeded. Oladipo went and shifted that immediately, going over screens, fighting through, switching. It was Oladipo and 4 other plus defenders out on the floor. And from that point forward, Atlanta just, it looked like they got punched in the face and had absolutely no response for it. They just had no idea how to handle it. It's like, oh, wait a minute. This shit was not on the scouting report. We didn't expect to not be able to get a shot off. And again, for the last 8 minutes of that second quarter, they were held to just 6 points. A lot of that because of Oladipo, Jimmy Butler breaking up passing lanes, Bam Adebayo doing what he does, PJ Tucker getting significant playing time, Gabe being a pass, etc. Just everybody stepping up, all these different guys getting significant playing time.
David, I had to check. I had to check multiple times in the game. I had to look, is Trae Young on the court? Yeah. I didn't know. And this is Trae Young. Like high usage rate offense runs through him at all times. Trae Young, like you don't check to see if Trae Young is on the court.
Mediocre.
You see him flopping around. You're like, oh yeah, Trae Young. But like he was completely rendered useless. 3 of 11 overall, 3 for 10 from 3-point range. My favorite stat: 5 turnovers to 5 assists.
Yep.
I mean, he hasn't for the series. He's averaging 6 assists and 6 turnovers. He can't make a shot because everything that he's shooting is contested. And you're absolutely right with Oladipo. He's just flying through the creases, flying over and through screens and all these things. And he was really good. But overall, Miami's defense was awesome. They held Atlanta to a season low in points with 86. They just put the clamps down after the 1-point loss on Friday night. I'm so impressed by this Heat defense. Yep. And this has been one of the best units all season long. But the Heat defense overall, doing what it has done to Trae Young. This is I mentioned some of those stats from Trae Young, but overall for the series, 16.5 points, 32% shooting, 20.8% on threes, 6 of 6, 6 turnovers. They're making Trae Young look like Markelle Fultz out there. I mean, it's crazy what they are doing to this guy.
That might be complimentary at this point. Like, I mean, Fultz might be playing better at this point. I know we're kind of being a little over exaggerated here, but they've made Young look absolutely mediocre. And look, Hawks fans will point to a couple of different aspects. One, the overall physicality of Miami's defense. Guess what, Buttercup? Suck it up. It's the playoffs. That's what you gotta fight through.
Can I be honest? Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say Gabe Vincent stepped on his right foot, and they're looking at that, and kind of pointing at that. It's like, oh, he was never quite the same after that point. It's like, yeah, maybe. I'm not sure how much it impacted him. I think he kind of.
Did you watch Trae Young in games 1 and 2? Like that was before the foot was. Get out of here with that.
He shot it down after the post-game press conference. But yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Good. You know what? That's exactly what I'm talking about. I have more respect for Trae Young after this series. I was not a Trae Young guy. Ooh. Like all the foul baiting and stuff. Like I can't watch that stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because he hasn't had the opportunity to do that because Miami is basically taking the ball out of his hands this series. But I really liked what he's outside of the complaining about the foul calls. But whatever, every NBA player does that. I don't care if one of them does it. All of them do it.
Yeah.
But like the respect that he's shown to guys like Erik Spoelstra, the fact that he's not using any excuses, like even the foul call thing, like if you really listen to the quote, it really wasn't an excuse so much as sort of like it kind of felt like he was trying to get more calls. And it's like, all right, like that's every player does this in a post-game session in at some point in the season. They try to use a post-game session to try to get more calls. I don't know, man. I just more respect for him. I think this has been a really tough series for him, but his attitude hasn't really changed. So that's just my little 2 cents on Trae Young.
No, I get it. He played 36 minutes tonight. Only got to the line once, and I don't. I think Hawks fans are kind of saying, turning around a little bit, and saying, you know what? They kind of they thought he wasn't getting to the free throw line enough. Following tonight's game, he hasn't been aggressive. Like
No.
he's taking floaters, he's taking long twos, he's settling for these long 3-point shots. He went 3 of 10 from 3-point range. He just hasn't been a particularly aggressive or good player, and I don't think any of that has really to do with injury. So he's not going to get the foul
No.
call if he's
And,
shooting from
and,
35
and you
feet.
gotta give the Heat credit. Like they went into the series saying we need to defend Trae
Yep.
Young like hell and not foul him. And they're doing a really good job of not fouling. Trae Young, like the floater, the long twos, the long threes, that's his game. But it's
Yeah.
usually like he does that and then leans into a guy and then gets the foul call. And
Right.
first of all, they clean up some of this stuff in the playoffs regardless. Like they let more of that kind of stuff go in the regular season. In the playoffs, they try to take some of this stuff away every single year. We've seen it for seasons on seasons. But also give a lot of credit to the Heat. They're not
Yeah.
they're sticking to their principles. They're not biting on that stuff. They've scouted it really well, and it makes sense because they play in the same division. They see him all the time. Like Miami typically does play Trae Young pretty well, so it's a good matchup. Going back, I know that we want to carve into more of the Jimmy Butler stuff and the Victor Oladipo stuff because those are the two huge stories to me in the game, and I know we're going to get to all of that.
We'll take a break here and get into some of the other players who stepped for Miami. Aside from Oladipo and Jimmy Butler, a couple other people stepped up, and they get some credit as they should for tonight's performance. And of course, we'll ask some bigger questions regarding Victor Oladipo's place in the rotation moving forward. But before we do that, just want to tell you about our next partner. Is a product that I just started using. I started taking AG1 because you know what? I wanted to feel better. I didn't really have the time to devote to that pursuit. And, went through the move, taking care of my son, work, and everything else. It's been tricky, but you know what? I've been on it for a couple of weeks, and I feel great. I've got the energy that I was looking for. It's a delicious, mild, tropical taste you can actually look forward to each morning. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, all the things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. Tons of people take some kind of a multivitamin, and it's important to choose which one has the high quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. Well, guess what? This makes it easy and cheap for you because you get all the different supplements enrolled into one in an environmentally sustainable and great tasting format. For every purchase, Athletic Greens will donate to organizations helping to get nutrition to foods, nutritious foods to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the United States. So right now, if it's time for you to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, then the solution for you is AG1. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. Make it easy. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit Athletic Greens, that's greens with an S.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Back here with Locked On Heat. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NBA game for these playoffs. Hosted by our panel of Locked On experts. It's free. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. All right. It's a winning time podcast, David, which means we're getting in the kitchen. We're whipping up some credit cookies here, even though we're not really bakers on this show. Every time I throw to you and wonder, and I ask you what kind of cookies are we doing, it's always we're getting the boxed famous Amos. We're not really putting on aprons here. What cookies are we doing today?
I'm going the bakery route today. No brand,
Okay.
no famous brand. I'm going with a black and white cookie because I have to admit, I felt a little divisive. I texted you before the game. I have to admit, I did not have the guts for tonight's game 4. I felt a little off with Capella coming back, with Lowry out.
I wasn't going to bring that up. I was going to let you slide.
No. Hey, I take ownership over my faults.
Accountability. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right.
Locked
That's
On
the
Heat
culture. Yeah, exactly. So I was concerned, but you know what? Miami flipped the script, and I think that's the two-sided nature of the cookie, the two-sided nature of this game. Yeah, so I tied it all together. That's what I do, baby. Yes.
All right, so black and white cookies. I love a good black and white cookie. So first question, do you go right at one side, or do you will you go like right into the middle almost and have like half the black side, half the white side.
You got to go right down the middle. I think you take a bite. Jerry Seinfeld had a great soliloquy about it in one episode of Seinfeld, so I kind of embrace that. But yeah, take a bite down the middle, and then you can kind of, yeah, exactly, bringing everyone together like the cookie. I think that's
be more like the cookie. All right, Jimmy Butler's getting 3 of these black and white babies. I am so impressed with Jimmy Butler. Not just tonight, 36 points on 21 shots, 4 steals, including like this crazy, just taking the inbound pass right out of the air and just being like, "This is mine now."
From John Collins,
that was unbelievable. And
what a momentum shift! This was when they were making that comeback. I think they were like either down 2 or like close to tying the game. He gets the steal in the inbounds play, to your point, and then just finishes an and 1 to boot.
And then John Collins' face after was just like, I can't believe that just happened. Yeah, and it's just like, where did this guy? How does he do this? Where did this guy come from? Just let me inbound the ball, like, and that's kind of it's the story. Like, the Heat aren't letting them do anything, including just inbound the ball. And this is a Hawks team that just wants to be let to do stuff. So Jimmy Butler is getting 3 of these cookies because of all the things that we're talking about, but he's just setting the tone for this game, for the series overall. I think there's an argument to be made that Jimmy Butler has been the best player, not just this series, like you pointed out accurately in the first segment, but in these playoffs, David. I mean, he's now the second leading scorer in the NBA postseason behind Nikola Jokic by, I think, a point. He's averaging 30.5 points per game. Unlike Jokic's team, his team is up 3-1. He's outscoring Jason Tatum, Giannis, and Steph and all the big names. He's got a better plus minus than he's got a better plus minus than Steph, better plus minus than Jason Tatum. I think if you were to ask me, like, just, offhandedly, who's been the best player in the playoffs, I think me and most people would have just sort of instinctually have said Jason Tatum because of everything that the Celtics are doing to the Brooklyn Nets and how loud those performances in that series has been from a national media standpoint. But you can argue that Jimmy Butler has been even better than Tatum. His plus minus numbers are better. Obviously, he's not guarding Durant the way that Tatum has to, and Tatum has been awesome. But he's scoring more. He's picking up the Trae Young assignment a lot, and Trae Young's no slouch offensively. Like I said, he's making Trae Young look like Markelle Fultz out there. Partly, him and the rest of the defense, but and the advanced stats just they blow Jason Tatum's advanced stats out of the. It's not like you could make an argument that either Jason Tatum or Jimmy Butler have been the best player in the playoffs, and a lot of things would favor Butler in that conversation. It's been incredible what he's doing. A lot of people aren't talking about it. You're not really hearing a ton of people give Jimmy Butler a ton of credit here, but it should be talked about more. I mean, he might be the best player in these playoffs right now.
It's been clear that, and I hate to say it because I think you and I have tried to debunk this for most of the season, but it really does feel like there is some sort of grand conspiracy about not wanting to talk about Miami. Like, either Miami's boring, they're sick of Pat Riley, they're sick of the Heat culture.
You know what? I think Bam nailed this the other day. I'm glad you brought this up. Bam was talking about this in practice, and he goes, 60% of our roster is undrafted players. How do you talk about that? I don't think it's.
We don't know who the hell they are. They don't even. The national pundits don't know like drafted players well enough to talk about them fluently. They can't talk about Max Strus or Gabe Vincent, who they'd never heard about before 2 weeks ago.
They just don't know how. They don't know how to talk. It's not a grand conspiracy not to talk about the Heat. They literally just don't know how to talk about them because Jimmy Butler isn't causing problems the way that he did in Minnesota or Philly, right? Which is why he was talked about before. He's never really been a guy that you talk about his on-court stuff with. He's not like easy to talk about. It's like, it's not Steph, right? Like it's not these guys who are just so like highlight machines. Like he's not that player. And that's fine. Like I said, he's probably the best player in the postseason right now, but they're just a really hard team to talk about. And I kind of get it. And especially when you're ESPN, you don't have a reporter based down here who's covering the team day to day. And if you're, other national, like, the Athletic doesn't have anybody here. The New York Times, like there's nobody here, And so you don't get these big cover stories on a Max Strus or a Duncan Robinson until it's the bubble and it's the playoffs and Jack McMullen's sent in to write something. Like that's it, And like now there's Dave McMenamin from ESPN because the Lakers have been eliminated. Like they're not.
Who hasn't been watching Miami all season long?
Well, because he's been busy covering the Lakers. That's his job.
Yeah, that's absolutely
it'd
fair.
It'd be like you and me going and covering the Lakers. Maybe not the Lakers because everybody talks about the Lakers. I think you and I could do a decent job. But like it's like, hey, you guys go cover the Sacramento Kings for a while. We'll be like, all right, I guess we'll figure this out. Like we'll do our best.
The nuances are lost.
Right, exactly. And so They're doing the best job that they can, but they're kind of behind the 8 ball on that
Yeah.
stuff. So
Really
whatever.
good point.
I didn't mean to do the whole media never talks about us because I don't think it's that fun of a conversation. But it's getting weird. It's been weird all season, and we just somebody needs to say it. And we cover the Heat every single day. And Jimmy Butler's been the best player in the playoffs, and he's getting 3 black and white cookies for that.
Yeah.
Erik Spoelstra, he's getting 2 of them. I love the way he managed this game. I thought, especially, he probably had as bad of a performance as anybody did on Friday night, right?
Mm.
And he bounced back, and he was much quicker with those lineup changes, much quicker to get to the PJ at the 5 lineup, which if we're talking about like death lineups and stuff and new nicknames for all that kind of stuff in Golden State, can we talk about it for Miami?
Yeah. What is it?
I don't know. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
The small ball lineup with PJ Tucker at the 5?
With PJ at the 5. Like, I want to call it, like, I've been calling it in my notes just the PJ 5, but that's just more shorthand. I don't think it's catchy. But that's all. That's where I'm at right now. Is the PJ 5. Just, we don't have to talk about it now, but put a pin on that. Maybe we'll save it for another show.
Hey, suggestions. We've got the best audience in the world. Send those suggestions,
true.
and we want to hear from you.
The PJ at the 5 lineup. We want nicknames in the YouTube comments below. So Spo, really quick to go to the PJ at the 5 lineup. Really good managing the game. Really quick to not only put in Oladipo, but recognize, all right, this isn't Duncan's game. This isn't really Dwayne Dedman's game. Let's just play small when Bam's not in there. And that powered the run that we were talking about earlier. So Spo, awesome for him. PJ Tucker, I want to spend some time on him. 2 black and white cookies for PJ Tucker.
It doesn't feel like enough.
It doesn't, but there's only so many to go around. And there's so many people that deserve it. But you're right. It does not. Like, he is just, what was his plus minus? It was crazy. It was he's plus
PJ Tucker. Yeah, he doesn't even need a plus minus. You give him whatever you want to, and that's fine with him. Like,
yeah, and it sounds right. If you told me, like, he was a plus 22 tonight, and it was a good game, 14 points. He's actually been scoring quite a bit in this series because he's
bringing the ball
up, dudes. Everything that we're talking about with, like, Bam, you need to be more aggressive. We want to see you post up. PJ is, like, just here doing it, and nobody's paying attention. He's averaging, like, double-digit points in this series, and he's posting up dudes. There was one play where Jimmy was bringing the ball down the left side, and he saw Trae Young fronting PJ, and you could see, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So he motions to PJ, "Hey, I'm gonna throw it over the top, and you're gonna have an easy, dunk or layup or whatever." And Trae, give him credit, he fronted him really well, and he couldn't really get the angle that he wanted. So Jimmy then he throws it to, I think it was Max Strus, and then we have like a triangle action basically getting set up here. So he throws it to Max Strus near like the center court area. Strus gives it, kind of takes a dribble with it. Trae Young has to shift his angle, more towards the center of the floor. Then Max gives it right back to Jimmy, and then Jimmy's able to just lob it right up to PJ. PJ, boom, boom, 2 dribbles right over the top of with the hook. He goes 2 dribbles to the inside of the court, hook over Trae Young. Trae Young obviously couldn't do anything about it. So that's just that kind of stuff. They're not only is PJ doing it, but they're targeting it too, right? They're calling plays for him. And Spo talked about that after the game, about the fact that PJ was like, he said, "Hey, we were trying to make a more concerted effort to get PJ involved in the offense and like run stuff through him. Not only because he's a good post-up player, because he can facilitate out of that area with the split cuts and all the stuff that we do on the outside." So, but then he was asked what led to that decision. He was like, "PJ yelled at me. He just said, get me the ball more." And then Spo was like, "That sounds like a good idea." So,
PJ's fire all game long. No, it's a great story.
And the fire, and the Okongwu stuff was great.
Oh, it's just. I know we've talked about it throughout the regular season. Watching these games where PJ has these incredible moments, like, this guy should have been in a Heat uniform for a decade. Like, he has fit in so well with everything this team feels like and symbolizes and just adheres to as far as their culture. And I know that can sound really cliche and everything else, but he's just been such a great fit, just a great personality to have in the locker room. Everybody loves him on this team, a proven winner. Jimmy spoke about it in his postgame presser that, that Tucker is a champion, and I want to be a champion. You know that they had like a little bit of a moment there where I guess things were getting a little heated, not necessarily between them, but they were trying to calm each other down, or I think Jimmy was trying to calm PJ down, and it got a little too fiery. And you know what? And Tucker, he said, Tuck knows that I come from a place of love. I'm just trying to talk to him. And it all smoothed out real quickly. So it's great to have these kind of presences in the locker room. Like, to be able to challenge one another takes you to that next level. And that's why Tucker has been such a seamless fit here in Miami.
Victor Oladipo, 2 black and white cookies to him. We already talked about him, so no need. And then Max Strus. he's getting the black and white cookie too. And I just want to, we could do we talked about plus minus with PJ. Max Strus led the team and with Victor Oladipo. Max Strus actually led the team in plus minus. He was a plus 34 tonight. And even from a shooting perspective, it wasn't that good, which that kind of tells, it was a little bit of kind of riding the coattails of what all these other guys were doing. He was just like in the right lineups at the right time, but also he was in those lineups instead of Duncan Robinson and Tyler Herro. He is really, I've been so impressed with what he's done defensively in this series. He is not a soft spot that you could poke at. He's not. Like, he's not the biggest guy, so he's not like contesting all like DeAndre Hunter's like really long, and he got him a couple times, right? But that happens to everybody. He's really held his own. He's a part of these lineups for a reason. He's part of the starting lineup for a reason. I talked to him about the defensive stuff in a practice last week, and I straight up asked him, like, why do you think you're getting, like, you kind of get lumped into being like targeted like this? And he goes, that part of it is a stigma, like white guy in the court, kind of smallish guard. That's part of it. And I asked him, like, do you take that personally? He goes, yeah, I take that personally. And he was like, he kind of got like amped up a little bit when I asked him that. And you could tell, like, on the floor, he's taking it personally, right? And so just super impressed with what he's been able to do. The fact that he's in those game-winning lineups is a testament to what he's been able to do, not just from the shooting thing, which is his strong point, but everything else that he's been able to contribute.
Yeah, well said. No, he's been a fantastic addition. It just seems like, look, I'll eat crow on this one too. I said earlier in the season he was not as good as Duncan Robinson defensively. That was the case earlier. He was. Yeah. You're absolutely. I know. I mean, we talked about it. We got some heat. A lot of people liked his energy, etc. But that didn't translate necessarily onto the court. It has over the course of the season. He's
better now than he was. He literally got benched for his defense for, like, what was it, 3 or 4 straight games of DNPCDs?
Yeah.
Was that in like November or something? I'm trying to remember.
Can't recall exactly
he was out of the rotation,
Yeah.
And he has gotten so much better. And that's kind of what we're talking about here is, like, I'm just so impressed. Right. And it's it's been on a bigger stage here against the Hawks and Trae Young.
Yeah. Fantastic win overall for Miami. Gabe Vincent played well. Bam played efficiently, 6 of 11 from the floor. Finished
almost gave him a cookie.
Points.
Since it's black and white cookies, maybe like Max can share his with Bam or something like that.
A half and half between Gabe and Bam Adebayo. Why not?
That's good.
Rolling out that starting lineup so everybody in the starting lineup gets at least half a cookie.
Be more like the cookie.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about here on Locked On Heat. We want to broadcast that unity as much as we possibly can. But you know what? We have some big questions to ask about Victor Oladipo moving forward in the next segment. But before we do that, just wanted to tell you a little bit about Built Bar. We talked about AG1 before. We talk about the process of trying to stay healthy, eat healthier. It's a real challenge. But something that you might want to look into if you haven't done so already is the Built Bar. It's the protein bar that you're looking for with all the nutrients that you might be needing without sacrificing any of the taste. Soft, easy to chew. All the bars are covered in 100% chocolate. So many delicious flavors to choose from. And again, you can just grab a box of them. You can get a mixed box with all of your favorite flavors. Whenever you're on the go, whether you're trying to get to a meeting, get to the gym, in between different things throughout the course of the day, you're feeling like your energy's down, just grab yourself a Built Bar. It's the perfect snack, and it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing any of the taste because it's kind of like an indulgent treat. It's almost like the joy of eating a candy bar without any of the guilt associated with it. You just grab a Built Bar. It's good to go. It powers you through everything that you need to throughout the rest of the day. And again, so many delicious flavors to choose from. You can't go wrong. You can try their puffs. Protein-infused marshmallow bars are great. Everybody loves marshmallows. I think everybody loves marshmallows anyway, but they're a great option if you're looking for that good. You don't love marshmallows?
No, but I like the puffs.
Well, of course you do. There's always mint brownie too. I know a lot of people like that for reasons that I can't begin to understand. But anyway, go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15. You get 15% off your next order. So use the promo code LOCK15 if you want 15% off your next order of Built Bars, but only if you go to built.com. Just a reminder, you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLOHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show as we continue to give you the best coverage of the Miami Heat throughout the playoffs. We'll be giving you recaps immediately after every game, so make sure to subscribe so you can get those immediately as soon as they're live. Wes, we're breaking down Game 4 here. Miami goes into Game 5 on Tuesday, a big game for them. And I think one of the questions a lot of our listeners and viewers will be asking is, well, what the hell happens with Victor Oladipo now? Yeah. Because I kind of call a little bit of bullshit on Spo kind of playing the good card there, saying, oh, everybody is a 15-man rotation. And then Oladipo saying, yeah, been ready. I don't buy that.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't think everybody's ready. Like maybe it's a 15-man rotation, but tell that to Udonis Haslam or Omer
Or
Yurtseven or
Yurtseven. Yeah,
Marquise
none of these
Morris.
guys are playing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I think
Marquise
the
Morris
only
hasn't been
reason
minutes. Yeah.
I think the only reason Oladipo was out there was because Caleb picked up 2 quick fouls, and it looked like he might not be a factor. Max had already played much of the first quarter, and Gabe Vincent was getting into foul trouble too. Of course, no Kyle Lowry.
Right.
You need somebody to step up, a ball handler. Tyler Herro looked like he was mostly ineffective at that point. Who else do you have? You don't have anybody else on this roster.
Yeah.
It was kind of an emergency case, break glass here, and it kind of worked out for Miami.
I think that Oladipo will play on Tuesday because that's where the series has sort of shifted, right? And that's fine. That's okay. I'm with you. I kind of call BS on Spo being like the 15-man rotation. You guys are reading too much in the 9-man rotation. I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't think that it's locked into those 9, but I certainly think there's like a default starting point of let's see what this 9 does, and then we can make adjustments from there. And that's exactly what's happened in this series. I think they knew Vic was going to play in this game based on how the series has gone. Caleb has not had a great series. Tyler Hero has not had a great series. Kyle Lowry is obviously out with the hamstring issue. They're the guys that you typically rely on. It's not been Duncan Robinson's series, right? He kind of gets those first half minutes, and then he doesn't really play for the rest of the game in this series because of the foul issues and stuff.
Yeah.
So
game 1, and he hasn't really been a factor.
if you're the head coach of this team, you know all of this stuff. You've seen how this series is trending. You're like, we'll stick with our default 9 here. Chances are we're going to go to Vic, and if I need to do it early, as opposed to what I did in game 3, which was kind of sticking to my guns a little bit too long, I think Spo was prepared to go to alternatives early in this game, and he knew what those alternatives were likely to be. And based on the way that things were trending and the players that were playing well in the series and the players who have not played well this series, the road led right to Victor Oladipo. And so he gave him the quick minutes in the second quarter, and he just took off from there. And he was one of the most important players on the floor for Miami tonight.
Given the kind of performance that Jimmy Butler has had throughout this series and Kyle's injury status, I wouldn't play Kyle in game 5. Like, even if he's at 100%, and I know that's easier said than done, you're not necessarily going to bench one of your star players here, but I don't think there's any reason to break him out. And again, a lot of that is made a lot easier because of what we saw tonight from Oladipo. Like, I don't think the Hawks are going to be able to make those adjustments. There's just so much they can do to overcompensate for the fact that Miami's defense is that much better with Oladipo on the floor, just as another spark plug off the bench. And he hasn't necessarily been a negative on offense. While his scoring wasn't there to match his defensive intensity, Miami just took it to another level. And if you can continue to have that go-to player in Jimmy Butler, why risk Kyle's injury? You're looking at the long run here. You're looking at the long game. You don't necessarily want to risk bringing him out there on the floor. Like, he was, I know, a game time decision. He was listed as questionable, as were other players there. But considering how much of a factor health has been throughout this season, why risk it?
I'm also calling BS on the game time. He was never playing in this game. Like, he didn't even really warm up. Like, it was ridiculous. Also, congratulations to any of the listeners who had on their bingo card David suggesting just not playing one of the Heat star players, because that's like your bit all season long. So there you go.
Why not? Like, I mean, would you trot him out there?
What was it? No, I wouldn't. I'm with you. It's ridiculous. I think I was just waiting for you to be like, just don't play VJ, don't play Kyle Lowry. So no, I think Oladipo is going to be whatever rotation Spo settles on for game 5 on Tuesday night. I think unlike game 4, where Victor Oladipo was more of an alternate, I think he'll just pencil Oladipo into his top 8 or 9 or whatever it is, however deep that he plans on going, right? And obviously you can make adjustments as the game goes on, as Spo did. Right. But I think we're at the point now for this closeout game. I'm with you. I don't think Lowry plays. I don't even think I think he wasn't as close to being a game time decision as he wants it to sound, as the Heat want it to sound. I think it's a little bit of fake news there. But I do I don't think Oladipo will start. I think they'll stick with their starting lineup with Gabe in place of Kyle.
It's Duncan though.
But I think it's Duncan. The other thing that's helped Oladipo in this series is that they have gone small when Bam's not on the floor. So you can even make the case that Oladipo should supplant Dwayne Dedmon, right? And you might give Dedmon like 4 or 5 minutes here and there just to mix stuff up and be a little bit physical. Yeah, exactly. And but maybe it's Oladipo that you go to a little bit earlier, and you're like, all right, you know what? PJ's our backup center because it's worked so well in this matchup for us. Bam comes off the floor. Whenever he comes off the floor, PJ comes in with Oladipo or something close to that. And now, Oladipo is still not considered a floor spacer, but when you have PJ at the 5, it becomes less of an issue, right? Because Jimmy is apparently a great 3-point shooter now, and so you don't have to worry about that. So Yeah, I think PJ playing the 5 has been really beneficial to Oladipo too. And I think just going forward in the playoffs, it's all going to be just like this. It's all going to be so matchup dependent. And that part I do buy when Erik Spoelstra says that. That part I definitely buy because that's been Spo's MO his entire coaching career, right? Even during the Big 3 era, guys would come up and down on the bench. People would be out of rotations, in rotations. He's very quick to make those decisions, and he's good at it. He's got a good feel for it. But yeah, back to Oladipo. I think he's penciled in as part of the rotation Tuesday night.
I agree. We'll see. We've got one day in between this and Miami's Game 5. And, of course, we'll still have a show in between games, but we'll look ahead to what might happen in Game 5 and then look past that as well to what might happen once Miami eventually moves on. But that'll do it for us today. Thanks very much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA, Locked On Experts, covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks so much for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B. Like and subscribe on YouTube.